Welcome back to the channel. So I am just about finished with this quilt here. I've got just a couple more blocks of sew, and then I'm going to add a black border around it, and I'll have that finished up today. But I wanted to talk to you about scraps. Now, me personally, first of all, I don't have enough room to like keep everything organized by color. I see a lot of people do that. That's my first issue. I just don't have the room. Secondly, I am terrible with colors. You know, blue is blue to me, even though there's 100 different blues. Same thing with any of the other primary colors. And so I'm terrible with colors. One of the reasons I like doing quilt kits so much, because everything is already coordinated. I know what the quilt's going to look like, and it works out good for me. But I do save my scraps. I try not to throw everything away. And this is them. I have got a bunch. Now, usually when this gets full, I'll send it to, I've got a lady in Minnesota that has a quilt guild, and I just box it all up and send her everything because I don't want to throw it away. I do save everything. And I've got stuff in here, like this was from a quilt kit. These are really big chunks of fabric, really, and it's all batiks, very colorful, very pretty. But I never know what to do with them. And I see all these scrap quilt patterns, and they're really cute. I love them. But I have a hard time wrapping my mind around, like, I guess I'm an organized scrappy. And so I thought I would try something different. So what I did is I purchased these foundation paper piecing for scrappy triangles. These are 6-inch blocks. And they've got, you know, you're going to just sew right onto the papers. These are a 6-inch block. And so I've got a lot of scraps here. And I don't like making huge quilts. I like doing like throw size quilts. So in the inside of the cover, it'll tell you how many of these pads that you need for whatever size. And I'm going to do the large throw, which means I need 3 of these. So I bought 3. Now, I got mine from Two Chicks Quilting down in Texas. I ordered them. And I think they were, it says it on the back, $16.50. So that's not too bad for 3. And like I said, if you look at the front, it has all different kinds of the scrap. I just love the way the scraps are. But what I thought was, since these are essentially more like half square triangles, you know, you could make star designs, you could turn them, make windmills, any, you know, whatever you wanted to come up with. I like just all of them going the same way. I just absolutely love this. But I thought maybe I can conquer my Mount Scrapmore and get a little bit of it done. There's a lot of these. They're all different also. I just noticed, like, this one has a square and a square in it. This one's got like a flying geese, and then I think the first one I showed you, it's just got big pieces. So I thought I would at least do one block with you guys here on camera and for the video, and show you how to do it. I am not a master at foundation paper piecing. I love foundation paper piecing. I've done I don't know, 3, 4, 5 Judy Niemeyer patterns, and so I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm kind of doing in foundation paper piecing. Now, whether I do it right or wrong, I don't know, but it works for me, and it's been working. So let's get started here and we'll do our very first piece. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is pick out which colors we're going to use on this. I just pulled the very first top sheet off. I do know that for the light, I want it to all be uniform. So I want it to all be the same. And I have quite a bit of this white fabric here. So I will cut a piece to fit for that white fabric. And then it's got 3 different pieces here for 3 different colors. Now, like I said, I am terrible at colored, you know, matching colors. But what I'm going to do is just dig in my scrap pile here and find 3 different colors. Let me see what I have. I'm digging, sorry. I have got a lot of scratch. I've got a lot of half square triangle, or not half square triangle, but I think this would work. Let me see if this will fit. Nope, that one won't fit on there. I've got a lot of jelly roll strips, which is surprising. Okay, here we go. I found one. All right, here we go. Okay, so those 3 colors, we'll just start off with those. So I'm going to cut them down, and because these are scraps, you could make a copy of this and cut out each one of these to make a template to fit your fabric and cut your fabric out. I am not going to do that. I am simply just going to get a rough guesstimate. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to move you. So that I know. So that's 1.5. That is 2. And that one is about 2.5. So 1.5, 2, 2.5. So I'll go over to the cutting board and we'll cut some of these down. Don't mind the mess. I'm working on some other projects. So, like, this is a really nice big piece of fabric. So I'm going to be able to use this several times. So the one piece was at least 3 inches. I'm just going to go up above the selvage here and just cut a chunk. Oops. Okay. I think oops, I cut 2. I wasn't even, it was folded up. I wasn't even paying attention. All right, and then this one, we can do a 2.5 piece off of it. So I'm going to do over 2.5 just to make sure that I'm going to be able to cover my piece on my foundation. And then this one was 1.5. This is a batik. Now, I don't mind mixing batiks and cottons if you don't want to do that. You know, certainly don't have to. That's a little way bigger than what I need on there. Okay, and oops, I did not measure the triangle. So it is 6 by 6. Should be 6 by 6. Yep, so I need at least a 6 by 6 piece. So what I'm going to do, since I know all of my triangles in there I want to be white, I am just going to cut, let's see, where's the 7? There we go. I am going to cut a 7.5 inch strip. Cut that down into, I really should have pressed that. I am going to straighten up this edge just so I can get a little accuracy here. So there's 5, 6, 7.5. So I know I could go ahead and cut, you know, a bunch of those and have them on the ready. I don't think I have enough light fabrics in there to do all of those. Most of that stuff is print. So here's 5, 6, 7.5. Alright, and then I'm going to cut these on the diagonal just once. So I'll have those so that that will fit over. Yeah, it'll fit perfectly over my square. Gives me a little extra room to trim it down. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so on the paper, it's got numbers. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So we're going to sew all of these on and then sew that on. So my first fabric is number 1, and I believe I cut the yellow. Now, when you foundation paper piece, you do everything from the back. This paper is pretty thin, and you can see all your lines there. If you can't see them, you can trace them to make it easier. Your very first fabric, when you first start out, that you put on there is going to be right side up. Luckily, this is a batik. Doesn't have a right or a wrong side. Okay, so we know that's going to cover all of that. And what I like to do is just bring it about 1/4 of an inch away. The second fabric now is going to go right sides down on this one. And I know it should fit right there. Here's my second piece. And if you're not sure, you can always just flip this over and make sure that it's going to cover your entire piece there. But it looks like it's going to fit. You could use glue. I've done that before. I'm just going to throw a pin in here just to hold everything while I flip this over. Well, I said I was. The darn pin. I'm always so afraid of sticking myself. Okay, I got it on there, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to turn my stitch length down to about a 1.2. And let me rethread this because right now I have black thread in and I want to use white thread. Okay, got white thread in. I'll reset. I did go ahead and change my needle. Also, anytime you start a paper piecing project, I would recommend putting in a fresh needle. That way you just don't have any issues with anything. So since we're going from 1 to 2, we're going to stitch on this line in between. And it looks like my needle, or my, I'll have to pull my pin out of there. I'm going to start back a ways from this solid line here. The dotted line is our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me grab one of these, see if I can show you. So if you look at this close, this solid line is going to be the outside of your border. The dotted line is the one we're going to trim on. So I'm going to start past this solid line right here, because when we sew these blocks together, the stitching, when you sew them together, it's going to, you know, you're going to end up stitching right on that dotted line on when you're sewing 2 blocks together, and it's going to cross section that and make sure that it's held in there. You could backstitch if you wanted to at the start and stop. I usually don't. I'll come out here just a little ways past this line here also. And I'm going to have to pull this needle out because the head of it is kind of thick right there. But now that I've got it started, it should stay. And I can see underneath my paper that I have plenty of seam allowance here. I should be in good shape. Okay, so let me trim off this extra thread that is not necessary. It just gets in the way. All right, so we've got, if you flip it over, we've got our first 2 pieces stitched together. And I'm just going to finger press this. You could go ahead and iron it if you want to, but it does cover. You can see the pattern piece under here. It needs to cover at least over to that plus about a 1/4 inch, and it does. You can also see it from this side. Oh yeah, you can see the shadow in there. See the shadow of the fabric? So I'm covering that entire piece. So we're good to go. So the next step, and let me grab my small board. Having these little small mats and stuff when you're doing this small paper piecing is actually very handy. So we're going to flip it over. This is the top side of the paper, and we're going to take something, cardstock or something, and put it right on the line, and we're going to fold. And then I have an add a 1/4 ruler, but you could just use a regular ruler. You just want to make sure that you trim this fabric off at a 1/4 inch. You want to leave a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to do that. Pull all this out. All right, and then we will add our next piece, which is this blue. So it's going to go right there. So we're going to put it right sides together. And this is plenty big enough. I know this is going to cover all of that. But we're going to stick it right there. And just line the edge of it up with where you just trimmed. Turn it over. And again, just stitch on that line. Alright. And then again, finger press. A seam presser, if you have one of those little seam pressers, those work really good. Right now, you could iron it. Like I said, I'm not too awful worried about it. So I think I'll iron it after it's all done. All right, so that's on. I know it's covering my pattern piece. So now we've got just this half right here. And I don't know if this little mat here is going to be big enough. I might have to move over to the other one. So I'll just move this up like this. Okay, and then we're going to put the add a 1/4 ruler on there. and trim all of this off. And I'm just going to move this up and move it back down as I need to, just to get it on here. So I'm going to do this here. And then I'm going to bring it back down. Let me grab a hold of it here so I can get this top part. And that should be it. There we go. Okay. Alright, so then we're going to flip it over. And we're going to add this piece here. Now we need to make sure that this is going to fit on there. So it looks like if I just put it right here, just like this, it's going to cover everything. So I'm going to scooch this down so that it's all lined up with the 1/4 inch that I just drew. Pull this out, carefully fold it over, start on one side here, and just go all the way down this long line. Okay, that's stitched on, and let's see what we got. Oh yeah, covered it all perfectly. Awesome. Okay, let's get this pressed up and then we'll get it trimmed down. Alright, so I'm just going to press this all out. Nice hot iron. You can starch it if you want to, use steam, doesn't matter. Alright, I'll pull my board up here. Okay, now remember, we need to trim on this dotted line because this is our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So be sure to not forget that. You don't cut the solid line, you cut on the dotted line. So all we've got to do is come around here and just trim each one of those sides. Easy peasy. This might actually go pretty quick. Probably the longest thing it's going to take is pulling all that paper off. We'll have to just see. One more. Okay, there we go. Oh, nice. Beautiful. What a nice block. I think this is going to be, with all of the different blocks that are in here, like this one's got the stripes going up and down. There's some with little bitty stripes for your little pieces. Oh, look at this one. It's got all these little pieces here. This is going to be really fun. I think this is going to be fun. Let's see what else we got. That one's got the jig-jaggities. So you can use even some of your really small scraps in this. This is going to be, yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So there we go. There's one block out of, I don't know how many I'm going to need to do to make a throw size quilt. You could stop at any point. But like I said, they're essentially scrappy half square triangles. So, you know, if you wanted to put 4 of these together and make windmills or make stars and have all these scraps in there, you can maybe conquer Mount Scrapmore and get rid of some of your scraps. I'm hoping I can use up some of mine because, like I said, I usually just give them away because I never know what to do with them. Very rarely do I go into my scrap bucket looking for anything, and so I thought maybe this would be just something fun, something different to try. I'm going to get this finished up this evening. I've got another quilt here that I need to put the binding on, and then I'm going to get started on those. So I'll keep you guys updated and see how I go from there. These foundation papers, I think most quilt shops will carry them. If you're interested, like I said, I got mine from Two Chicks Quilting. I'll try to leave the link down below, and you could check them out if you want to. They do a lot of fun stuff. I'm attending one of their virtual retreats, which is going to be all online, so it's a retreat in your PJs kind of thing next weekend, and I'm looking very much forward to that for 2 days. I think that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So just, you know, I've never really been to a retreat. I've always wanted to go. The problem is I live down here in a little hole out in the country, and I don't people a whole lot. So, being around a bunch of people, you know, all day, part of the night, and, you know, for a week or something, I don't know if that would be really my style, but something virtually so that I could turn it on or off as I needed to, and still be able to stay home and tend to my responsibilities here, taking care of my husband and a few other things that I've got. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So I hope that they do more of them. And I hope other quilt shops maybe kind of catch on to that idea, because first, it's cheaper than a regular retreat. You don't have to, you know, it's a lot cheaper, but you don't have to leave your house. It's just, I think it's just a fantastic idea. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, so check out Two Chicks Quilting. And I'll keep you guys updated on the Mount Scrapmore quilt, as we'll call it. Have a great day and happy Easter.